Well, hello, everybody. F1 Chase for the title. We're back and better than ever. Let me introduce my co hosts, the fabulous Steve,
Hello.
the always superb Dr. Bill, otherwise known as Billy,
Hello, everyone.
and the superstar of superstars, the George Russell of our organization, the Lando Norris. Name a young, promising driver, and this man is the personification of that. Our friend and superstar Chase. Chase, say hello.
Hello. It's nice to be back.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. You're too kind. Fans obviously missed us in our little hiatus that we took, but we're in the middle of a hiatus of the summer season, and where everybody's taking a little break. It's so hot in Europe that they want to take a little break, but the weather's not been as hot as the season's been so far, with some exciting racing and some unbelievably dynamic races with changes that we didn't anticipate and going into the season. So let's just start with an overall impression of where we are so far, and I'll start with young Chase. How do you think about the 2021 season so far?
Definitely been like right up there with like the best seasons of this most like recent era. Like, I think like 2016 was very good. 2020 had like its moments, but I think 2021 has like really been consistently entertaining. You have like races like Azerbaijan and Baku, and you also have like what we just had and what we're going to be covering today with like Imola. It's really been one of the best seasons I think in a while.
Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with Chase. Coming off of last season, there was a bit of disappointment, and I was nervous that this was going to be kind of a lame duck season. I thought maybe we could see some surprises, but it would probably be few and far between. And aside from a couple early on races that made me think that way, it certainly has gotten very exciting. And then I don't think there's any better way to go into a mid-season break than what we just had.
Billy, anything to add?
Yeah, I think what makes it even just to echo what everybody else said, but also I think most people kind of expected it to be just a ho-hum season, just marking time before the new regulations are in force. And if anything, it's been, as Chase was saying, one of the most exciting seasons in recent times. Things just like just all kinds of crazy stuff going on.
Yeah, and it's been interesting because even off track, there's been some signings and some extensions of contracts, including Lewis Hamilton's. But then Lewis has had his moments where maybe he's not as popular as he thinks he is, as the fans have been upset with him for some of his tactics on the race course. And then we've also seen the reemergence of Sebastian Vettel and Fernando Alonso, to name two veterans out there that seem to be racing like they're youngsters again, like reinvigorated by the teams and their teammates, I suppose. So that's been pretty interesting. And, whatever changes are pending, they seem to be making some changes in advance of their cars. So you got 4 or 5 teams that are very competitive right now. And Chase, can we pull up the Constructors Championship? Do you have that? Maybe we could look at that and just to show you how close things are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll talk over it while you're looking for it. And, I think the Mercedes dominance seems to have been checked, and it looked like Red Bull for a while this season was going to kind of maybe pull away. And now, of course, it's neck and neck with the penalties and things that have happened with the DNFs that have happened with Verstappen. Right, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I clearly there was a stretch of, I believe it was 5 races where Red Bull came in first. I think 4 for Verstappen. I think 1 for Sergio Perez. And at that point, I think everybody thought, wow, the momentum is clearly with Red Bull. But then starting with Britain, you really saw a shift. And it wasn't a team or a strategy shift. It was just, a bad luck shift. In the sense that Verstappen had 2 major accidents that really kind of put him out of contention.
So, Chase, what do we got here in terms of the points here? I'm just trying to look real quick.
Well, we have the entire lead is decided currently by 12 points. We have 3rd and 4th actually tied between Ferrari and McLaren. And then there's kind of like the rest of the midfield with like Aston Martin, AlphaTauri, and Alpine, which I think if it were not for Sebastian Vettel's disqualification at Imola, it would still be a lot closer even there. And then you have Williams with their new sprung lead over Alfa Romeo and Haas.
Wow.
So that's about as good as it gets, folks, with these teams. For the last few years, of course, the gap between Red Bull and Red Bull and Mercedes was pretty wide. But now, as you can see, we got 4 or 5 teams that are competitive, and the 2 big guys are going slugfest city. And McLaren and Ferrari are within shouting distance. So that's more than we thought we were going to get, I think, as the season started, right, Chase?
Oh yeah, like coming into the season, I definitely thought it was going to be like a Mercedes runaway, like just from the very beginning. And then there was the practicing, like preseason, and we saw Red Bull taking the lead. But I still thought that Mercedes was like bagging, and then the season started, and it's just been close the whole way through.
And Dr. Bill, what do you think about some of the veterans who really sort of stepped into the fore the last few races and showing that they're not done yet?
I think I was so happy with Fernando. It was like a master class. Did you watch him make Lewis work and work and work and work and work to get past him? It was perfect. I mean, eventually, obviously, he did, but he was doing everything he could to protect his teammate and keep Lewis working as hard as he could to get past him. It was beautiful.
Arguably, Fernando basically won the race for Ocon by blocking the way he did, because I think they said it was 10 laps that he basically kept Lewis behind him when Lewis had DRS and was basically, I think Lewis was just like, hey, Fernando, you're old, get out of the way,
Yeah.
And Fernando's like, no, pass me, pal. You got to pass me because I'm not slowing you down significantly. You got to pass me. You got to earn it. And he made him earn it, and it was just enough to keep Ocon ahead. So
yeah.
Ocon, the young Frenchman, what a race he ran. I mean, just all over the place. It was a very exciting, 8th race we had. And I think I think Formula One secretly, they won't come out and say this stuff because it's too much money and too many teams, but I think they love it when the big boys are sort of having problems and these young guys can, and older guys can get in the mix. People are, fans of all the teams. So it's tough when you don't think your team has a chance to win each week. So, this shows that with some circumstances and some handicaps, there are competitive teams in Formula One these days. And so I think it's been obviously very exciting. I think it's great for the sport. I don't know I'm sure the ratings probably reflect that too, don't you think, Steve?
Yeah, I would probably put the emphasis on team, because I think, especially in the last race, the way you mentioned Alonso blocking for Ocon the way he did, on his, I think it was his 40th birthday. And the way they rode side by side and even afterwards, the way they embraced each other and were just so genuinely excited for Ocon. You saw it with the Williams team, whereas when Latifi got, I forgot what place he was, but at that point, Russell was like, I'll do whatever I've got to do to make sure we push him up front so that we get points. And I think it's refreshing when you reflect back on last year and the level of contention in many of the teams, looking at it from a very individualistic way, and even into this year with Hamilton and Bottas. You're seeing Verstappen and Perez working as a team, and it garners results, and it's refreshing to see.
Yeah, I think if I'm correct, I think even after this past race, you saw Vettel like hugging Ocon, and Vettel saying, "I pushed you as hard as I could. I did everything I could, and you did great. You did a great job." And I mean, that's not even on the same team. And I think that was like, that shows that really deep down inside, these guys are competitive as hell, but they respect somebody who's got talent. What they don't like is when they, obviously when they think somebody's done something stupid, created an accident, or deliberately pushed them off the side of the road and caused damage, because there's so much at stake that everybody gets so disappointed. But when it's great wheel to wheel racing and these guys are doing their thing, there's very few things like it. So Chase, where do we stand with the individual drivers at this point? Let's remind folks where we stand here, and I'll pop it up for you. There we go.
There's the front half. Mm-hmm. We've got Lewis Hamilton and Verstappen, which have been trading first all season. Norris, who was probably the big surprise of the year, still holding off third position. Bottas and Perez, Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc, Gasly, Ricciardo, Ocon, Alonso, Vettel. I don't have to read them all, but it goes down pretty much in the same exact order as they are currently in the Constructors Championship. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's still the usual suspects to some degree, but it's closer than we have seen in a while. And as we sit here right now, I guess maybe let's do this. If I asked you for a prediction, and not something that most people are thinking about, give me something that you think is going to happen that maybe perhaps most F1 fans are not believing will be the case at the end of the season. Something that you think is a little bit out of the ordinary. Steve, you got anything?
Oh, wow. I think it will be interesting to see. Obviously, we saw some strong performances by Alpine and Williams in the last race. I wonder psychologically what this win or wins. They're not wins. They're wins for Williams in the sense that they got points. And I think you saw by their reaction how much it meant to them. And I think that was a psychological barrier for that team. And I guess I'm very curious to see if that will help elevate their performance for the second half of the season such that they are much more competitive with the likes of Renault, McLaren, and Ferrari, racing for that middle of the pack lead.
So, are you saying that you think Williams is going to finish higher up in the Constructors Championship than people were thinking at the beginning of the season?
Yes, correct.
So, are you saying top 5?
No, I'm not. No,
okay.
I'm not. But I think that they could be realistically be a 6, a 5 or 6.
Okay, all right. Chase, what do you got? Anything that we're not thinking about? You think might come to pass?
I think, or I don't know if this is like true by any means, but I think a lot of people are expecting McLaren to come out on top of Ferrari. But I think Ferrari is really going to have it all pulled together by the second half, and I think that McLaren are going to continue to fight this one-sided battle with Lando and Ricciardo. And I think Ferrari's going to come out on top by the end of the season.
Yeah, because Ricciardo's not helping him at
No,
all.
he's not. Absolutely.
And like I saw something, a video on it yesterday about like different driving styles and how the McLaren handles and why it's so difficult for Daniel Ricciardo, which was really interesting. So it's like the complete opposite of what he's used to, and that's why it's been so hard for him to switch, allegedly. So hopefully he can get that down and start fighting.
And we thought it was going to be tough for Perez to learn Red Bull, but in actuality, it's Ricciardo and McLaren.
That's an interesting point. You would think that in testing, they might sort of figure out if the driver actually can drive the car before they sign them to $1 million contracts. But what do I know? Dr. Bill, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm looking at the standings. I'm thinking again, kind of two thoughts, but one of which is kind of like Steve's saying, where with Williams, they're always like, an afterthought. They're like, bringing up the rear all the whole time. But looking at the standings, I mean, they stand a good chance of jumping out of the Alfa Romeo Haas family into the middle of the AlphaTauri standings, AlphaTauri neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also wondering about Bottas. I don't know. Something tells me he's not gonna finish the season. But,
Really?
Is it what? Like he's gonna get switched out halfway?
yeah, I don't know why. I just have a feeling that he will. But I don't know. I haven't checked his contract, so his contract may prohibit that, but maybe not.
Yeah, with him, it seems to be almost a race-to-race thing. Since one weekend he seems to have his act together, and you think, okay. And, Lewis is probably saying, all right, I finally got a teammate again. And then it's Mr. Bonehead, where the whole field hates him because he does something stupid like the late braking thing and wiping out 14 cars.
Yep.
My prediction is, as Clubber Lang said in Rocky III, pain. I think that Lewis is not going to have an easy easy ride for the second half of the season towards his what would be record-breaking eighth championship. I have a feeling that Max is going to clip him, and that Max is going to take his first title and keep Lewis from getting number 8. I just think that Lewis has had a lot of luck and things go his way, and I just think we're at a point where, unlike in seasons past, where everything seemed to lay down for Lewis, I just have a sneaking suspicion it's going to be very close. It may go down to the last race in Tokyo. Is that where it is, or are we in Tokyo the last race? Or
Actually, Japan's
Abu
been
Dhabi.
canceled, I think.
Yeah.
Japan's been canceled, and I guess we won't be there.
Canceled. Abu Dhabi, I think, is the last.
Abu Dhabi. I got a feeling we're going to be neck and neck in Abu Dhabi, and I just see Max pulling it out in the last race of the season. Could be wrong. See what happens. Lewis could very well sail because Mercedes has certainly been the more reliable vehicle for the last 7 years. But I just think maybe we're in for a changing of the guard, at least this one season, and then who knows, next year I think all bets are off. So that'd be my prediction, and not a bold one per se, but I just think, and I think that the races are going to continue to be competitive because I just think there's so much pressure on these guys now that mistakes are going to continue to happen. People are just going to make mistakes, and it's going to affect the whole field, and each race is going to be its own little subplot of the bigger story. So, I don't know. We'll see. And I think in, the off-season stuff, I'm really excited now to think that if the changes that are going to be happening are supposed to make the racing even more competitive, boy, maybe we're really in for a new era starting in 2022. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, no, listen, let's carry this momentum. I think the one of the big storylines that we're seeing, especially with the number of crashes, is the money, because it's having an impact today in this current season, and it's going to have an impact next year. So I think, as you see these big crashes, it is going to have an implication on the impacts that we're going to see next year.
When we're talking about that, I wonder if they're going to start to review, when you talk about money, the price of these mistakes. Because grid penalties don't do crap for the guy that got knocked out because you're a moron and you did something stupid.
I mean, what was it, 5 places for Bottas for what he caused?
Yeah, he wiped out half the field. And, Lewis deliberately basically takes out Max with that thing, and Max is, off, and it cost him, the race win probably. And Lewis picks up points. So how is he penalized? I mean, it seems to me some of these penalties have to be, some things I think they have to let go. So some, it's stupid. Sometimes the pit penalties and some of the other things, I mean, I'm like, come on, really? Is that punishment fit the crime? Particularly when the teams let them out in front, they go dangerous release. Well, it's not the driver's fault. But otherwise, some of the penalties seem to be too light for what they're doing, what they're costing the other teams. Don't you think? Don't you think, Bill?
I had somebody barking on right by my feet, so I had to mute the mic.
So we're talking about the penalties.
No, I could hear you.
Punishment fit the crime.
No, I think, and I agree with you. I think that so many times it's so asymmetrical. Like you're saying, it's like with Bottas, he wipes out half the field, and he gets a 5-grid penalty. It's over and over. Even the stop and go penalties. It just seems very lopsided, the way that the impact that the transgression causes versus the subsequent penalty that's suffered does not seem to be equal.
Right, and then on the other side of it, some of the technical penalties where such you end up starting at the back of the field after you qualified third or something. That also seems to be the opposite. It's like that penalty seems to be too harsh for what the team is elected to do. So I don't know, Jace, what are your thoughts?
I think it's definitely had more of an impact this season than like previous seasons, because this season they are trying out the new budget cap, or at least a modified version of it that is going to be in place next year. So that's definitely really brought up some of these issues like never before. But yeah, and there's like some things that are injured in that sense, like Lando Norris had a streak of like most consecutive points finishes for McLaren. Obviously, that came to an end with the crash in Imola. But, that's like that's not something that is like monetized. That's not something you can really do anything about. That's just kind of the way it is.
But the problem though is if you crash because somebody's done something stupid or puts you into the wall, and you got to repair a nose cone, or you got to repair a chassis or something, and it counts against your overall budget, and it's not through any fault of your own driver.
Right.
It just seems like that is a financial penalty that's imposed that basically has nothing to do with the team decision, but yet it counts against your overall budget cap, and that does seem to be something that I think they have to look at because it's happening, race to race, and the team's basically suffering twice. First, they got the damage to the car and the effect that it has on the race, footing for that weekend. It hurts the constructor's position. It also hurts the driver's chances of scoring points or what have you. And then plus you're putting a price tag on it that they can't get refunded. So again, I don't know that you're going to see a situation where one team's going to write a check to another team. But maybe there has to be some kind of contingency budget within the control of race control of F1 to say, you know what, this was so egregious that this team deserves to basically be repaid for the damage that was done. But I don't know, probably won't happen.
Well,
but there's so much money at stake here. It's just like a foul call in basketball or holding penalty in football is appropriate given the circumstances. But these kinds of penalties, when somebody's taken out of the game,
right.
seems like the penalty has to be stiffer to the defending party. Otherwise, it's like, what keeps it from happening again and again, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a problem with that, and I think the other problem that has been brought up recently is penalty points and how drivers rack them up and how different penalties are weighed differently. Like driving over a line on pit entry or exit can have more of a penalty than like what you were talking about with like Hamilton hitting Verstappen into Eau Rouge or, the Imola accident or anything really.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like it's something you have to look at because it's just, we're seeing the results of these things. And again, on the other hand, the parties that benefit, it's wonderful for them. When you see some of the midfield teams all of a sudden find themselves because of an accident, holy crap, we have a chance to finish on the podium. Which is, from that perspective, it's wonderful. But, the other side of it is, it took an unfortunate event to get us there. So, so we got the Belgian Grand Prix coming up. We were talking off air about the tragic circumstances regarding the woman who was the CEO of the Belgian Grand Prix. Is that what her position was? Mm-hmm. And so it's a very sad situation there. But the race itself, I think people are looking forward to it on 27th, right? Is that right, Chase?
Yeah.
Anything about the track that's particularly interesting? Is this we racing? Is this Spa or is it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it is. Okay. All right. So, very famous track, right? I think it's a fairly high speed one, if I recall correctly, and opportunities for passing, unlike some of the other tracks, right?
Yeah, it is definitely one of the most looked forward to tracks of the year. I think it continues to consistently produce like good racing to watch.
And do we have a particular idea? Does it favor Mercedes or Red Bull, you think, or both teams have a fair shot?
I don't know this year. Honestly, I have less of a clue than I did last season. But I think Red Bull is the better car all around, so probably them.
All right, so let's sort of wrap up here with we'll go around the horn with a couple predictions. Let's say at the end of the year, who do we think that? Let's give me 1, 2, 3 in the drivers. Who do you think? Let's start with Dr. Bill.
Max, Lewis, and Lando.
Lando, nice, nice.
Because he's currently well.
All
I'm doing is changing the current lead, so that's not too radical, but that's kind of where I would guess.
Okay, so you said Max, Lewis, and Lando. Is that what you said?
Yep.
Okay. Chase?
I'm gonna say Max. Actually, no, I'm gonna say it's Lewis, Max, Valtteri. I think, if you look at the amount of
that hurts
races, I know it hurts, but I mean it's a prediction. Like you look how many like races Valtteri has actually finished versus Lando Norris, and he's only behind by 5 points.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Yeah.
Steve?
I would have, statistically speaking, I would have to agree with Chase, but I'm not going to because I want to leave out hope that things can be different. I'm going to go with Verstappen, Hamilton, and Perez, and it's going to be tough for
That'd be
Perez.
nice.
It's first year at Red Bull, but if he can maneuver smart and be patient, I think he can do it.
Some bold predictions there.
And I get the feeling that Sergio finally has broken the Red Bull curse of the number 2 driver.
Yeah.
I know they're still talking about replacing him. Still,
Are they really? Oh my goodness.
yeah.
What do they want him to do? And walk on water over there or what?
I don't know. I think it's that whole like planning ahead, like mindset, like getting or like someone else younger up versus getting someone who's been in the sport for a while. Like,
But the younger plan has backfired
I know.
twice, 2 in a row. So it's like, come on. But yeah, we'll
I don't
see.
know. They'll make a decision soon. I think a lot of teams are going to be making decisions soon.
Yeah.
Okay, let's give me a wild card prediction. Something that you think nobody's really looking at right now. Wild card for the second half of the season. Start with Chase.
I think Alonso is going to be like top 8 by the end of the season. He's really picked it up recently. So I think he's going to be around like here at the end of the season.
Isn't that where is he like 7th now?
He's 11th.
11th. Okay. All right. So you got to move it up 3 positions by the end of the season. Steve?
I'm going to say that Ferrari is going to be in the top 5 from a driver standpoint, and I'd say that there is even a possibility they could be top 3, number 3 of the top 3.
Oh wait, instructors or drivers?
Drivers. I know I called out Perez as being number 3, but if we want to go crazy wild card, I would say that maybe Carlos or Charles can make it into 3rd, 4th, or 5th.
Who do you think would be falling out though? Bottas or Norris?
I think Norris because I think the momentum is with Norris, and I think Bottas right now has made enough mistakes as of recent that his confidence is now thoroughly shaken, and I don't think people are that thrilled with him. So I think he's got a lot of things going against him.
All right.
Dr. Bill?
I'm going to go. I wanted to do an Alpine angle, so we got the Fernando one already taken, but I have a feeling they're going to move up either together because they're both in the standings right now, 10 and 11. I think maybe both of them will move up significantly up into the middle 5-6 range. I don't know why. I just think that they might.
5-6. Ooh.
As far as in the drivers, but as far as the constructors, it's like they don't really have a lot of room to move up. They can go from their 5. I don't know if they could take on McLaren.
That's a huge. Really have to like.
Oh yeah. They'll have to because they'd have to more than double their points because they're the standings. They're 163 to 77.
So I guess. All right. You could say like they would take over the midfield, so like Aston Martin and
AlphaTauri and
McLaren.
Who else?
McLaren, Ferrari,
Williams.
Williams. Yeah, I guess.
My prediction is that Williams is going to push it up. That this is going to be the momentum shift to make them,
Right. I think Williams is going to jump up firmly into the midfield out of the basement, and Alpine maybe at the head of it, tied up with McLaren.
Some bold predictions. We'll have to see what happens. I'm personally rooting for Mick Schumacher to maybe get himself in a position where maybe he can score some points in the second half of the season. Get himself in 10th perhaps with a break here or there. And
he scored some respect. He scored huge respect in the last race. So that
because he didn't fold his tent. Even with Lewis, he made Lewis work to pass him.
Verstappen, Lewis, he raced him hard.
Yeah.
And then people, it's funny because on the broadcast they're like, "Well, Mick Schumacher." And I'm like, "Who was his father, or who is his father?" I should say. I don't talk about it past tense, but from a racing perspective, who was his father? One of the hardest guys in the world to pass ever.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't pass Michael Schumacher. If you did, you might end up in the wall. So, and I think it's one the other thing, talking a little bit about Mick is he seems to be doing the exact opposite of a kid who's trying to ride on the coattails of his father. He's not drawing attention to himself. He's not making predictions. He's not cocky. He's just trying to learn his craft and work his way up the field literally. And I think the kid, to me, he shows signs of, get him in the right kind of car. Let's get him in a midfield car maybe in the next couple of years, and let's see what this young man can do. Because I think that, I think he's getting coaching from Raikkonen and Vettel, and I think he's the real deal from what I've seen so far. So I'm just hoping he continue to progress because he's in inferior equipment, but he's out there each race, and he seems like he's talked about he has the moves. He's got the instincts, I think. So I'm hoping that's the future of one of the futures of Formula One right there with that young man. So anyway, it's very, very exciting. And I think, like we talked about, I look at this as a bonus year. I came into this year thinking, oh my God, it's just a rubber stamp and it's going to be Lewis again. And it's going to be boring as hell and, whatever. But the exact opposite is the case. An exciting year. And I think it portends good things for next year. So I think we did a nice job doing a little recap and also looking forward. And so we'll come back again if you want us to. You want us to, folks?
Yeah.
All right. Calm down.
There's one or two of them out there.
All right. So as we wrap up here, folks, we hope you're enjoying the season. We certainly are, and there's more good races to come. So, as we like to say, we're wishing you time in the DRS zone. Take care. Cue music outro.